One of the biggest jobs on my resume is the history channel. And the entire kit was a camera, one lens, an EasyRig, and a tripod. And yet most of you are showing up to shoot with twice the gear and half the results. I'm a documentary director and DP. I've shot for ESPN, Amazon, and PBS, and the best projects I've ever been a part of had the simplest of kits. Today I'm breaking down the gear trap, why more accessories are actually slowing you down, and the sorting rule I use to decide what stays in my kit and what goes. And at the end of all of this, I'm going to give you a 1-question test that tells you whether any piece of gear is worth buying. That question is going to save you thousands of dollars. What's going on, world? I'm Eric D. Seals, and today we're talking about why you don't need more gear and what you should be investing in instead. This is for anyone who shoots video and keeps adding to the kit without seeing their work improve. Every new thing on YouTube is not something you need. From new mics to gadgets, wireless systems, lenses, monitors, most of the stuff you already own is good to go. The problem isn't your gear, it's the habit. This isn't about camera bodies. That's a completely different conversation that we'll have on a different day. This is about everything else in your bag. If you want to learn how to do more with less, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I put out videos like this every week. Let's jump into it. We're in a technology boom for filmmaking, and every other week there's a new product dropping with a YouTube review attached to it. But here's what nobody's talking about. Most of it is not going to make your work any better. New mics that do the same thing as the ones you already own, gadgets that attach to your camera and add more weight, wireless focus systems most doc shooters will never use, the endless lenses that come out every day, the list can go on. Monitors, gear that makes your camera look bigger but doesn't make the image better. The reason filmmakers keep buying it is because they think that's how you get to the next level, and it's a cop-out. The real way to level up is networking, marketing yourself, cold emailing, and working on your craft, not buying more gear. So when I look at the History Channel, it was a really simple kit. So this is a documentary about the Tulsa Massacre of 1921, and it was one of the biggest jobs that I've ever received at that time. For this project, they had me on a very simple kit. It was on the Amira. We had a Fujinon 19-90. I was on an EasyRig and a tripod. That's essentially it. I didn't have a whole bunch of gadgets piled on. It was a really simple team, and it was an effective shoot because it allowed us to move very fast. You don't need more gear to do better work. You need more intention with gear you already have. So that's the trap in this whole situation, but there's a practical problem that nobody talks about, and it has nothing to do with money. It's about what happens when you actually get to set with all that stuff. So let me show you. So let me tell you what an overpacked kit actually looks like on a documentary set. So one of the things that I see with younger cinematographers is they have a kit that has like 13 different batteries, from the Sony L mount to V mounts to the Canon LP E6 batteries, plus accessories. Your rig has 4 to 5 different batteries that it needs to run a shoot. And the problem with that is, as soon as one battery dies, another one is about to die. Now, if you can rig it so all of them go into one master battery, like an Anton Bauer or a V mount, then you'll usually be in a better situation. But some people who have so many things on their camera that need batteries, they're gonna run into issues because they're gonna constantly be swapping them out. From LiDARs, autofocus systems, handle attachments, all needing their own power, you're gonna be down every 30 to 40 minutes replacing something, and on a real doc set, that is just not going to work because most of the times you cannot stop. You essentially want one battery that's going to power everything, so once you swap it, you're ready to go for your whole entire camera rig. If it takes 8 different battery systems to power your rig, you've already lost. Every accessory you add is another point of failure and another thing to charge. And another thing to keep in mind with that is your producers and people outside of your initial crew do not care, and the story does not care. So I've seen a lot of people miss moments because they're fiddling with their rig, from batteries to connectivity to apps. That's why I don't like all of that stuff as much as possible, because I just want to focus on putting a lens on the body, pressing record, and using my body, my EasyRig, my tripod, or on my shoulder to function to tell the story. When you have all these things connected, sometimes it gets in the way of good storytelling. I've hired some cinematographers and they take forever to get set up on a commercial set. That's no problem. For a doc set, we got to get going. And honestly, usually just don't work with those people again. Speed on set is a reputation builder. Showing up overpacked and slow is a career at risk. If it takes you longer to set up your rig than to shoot the scene, you have too much gear. So the gear trap costs you money. The battery problem costs you speed, but here's the part that's going to change how you think about every piece of equipment you own. I call it the on button rule. If it has an on button, it's probably going to be outdated rather quickly, and you need a plan for that. A tripod doesn't have an on button. It will outlast every camera body you ever own. Lenses can be used 40 years from now and still be great. There's no on button for most of them. Well, there's no on button, but sometimes there's buttons. But there's no on button. They continue to hold their value. Your shoulder mount rig has no on button. Your cases have no on button. These are going to last. Now then you have audio gear, which they do have on buttons, but just a little different system, because a good mic is a good mic and it's gonna last for a long time. I'm still using my dad's mics that he bought in 2003. They still work, the G2 Sennheisers. They still work perfect because good audio wireless doesn't go out of style as much as camera bodies and certain technology. And then good mics do not go out of style. Like, they do not get replaced. You know, the mic that I'm using right here, these different things can last for a long time. So when you start to think about what you're investing in, think about those items. It doesn't mean that you can't, obviously you have to invest in things that do have on buttons, but I noticed that the cases that I'm still using are ones that are from 20, 30 years ago, mixed in with the current cases that I'm buying, but they still work. Camera bodies go outdated quickly, so does anything that's electronic that you attach to it. Invest heavy in the no on button gear, budget and plan for the on button gear. This is where your money should go, not into the latest accessories that dropped on YouTube this week. It needs to go into the gear that will still be in your back a decade from now. And that's how you build wealth within your filmmaking career. Now you know what to keep and what to let go. But the next time you're about to buy something, how do you actually make that call? I have one question that settles it every time. Let me give you what you actually need to do professional documentary work. Everything else is optional, I promise you. All right, so these are the main things that you need to consider investing in. So a camera body obviously is something that you're going to need. You don't need 13 different bodies. You don't need 4 different bodies. One main camera body is going to go a long way. So if I was looking at my prime lenses, I would look at something like a 35 and a 50. And then for a verite lens, I would look at something like a 24 to 70 or the 24 to 105, depending on what manufacturer you're purchasing, but something that's going to give you a range so you can use it all day. And then having a good tripod. It's hard when you have to invest into one because there's so many cheap options out there, but until you use a great tripod, you don't realize what you're missing out on. And that tripod is gonna be with you for a very long time. My latest tripod, the Sachtler, I think I'm saying that right, I don't really know, but I just try to be positive because I think this is how you say it, and I don't know, it might sound stupid. But that tripod has been with me since, I think I got that in 2016, 2017, and it's beat to heck, but it still works and it's still one of my favorites. That good tripod is going to be expensive, but notice it doesn't have an on button. As far as stabilization, I'm a big fan of using a shoulder rig. Many people are not, but that's something that I know I can utilize on any camera system that I have. When it comes to EasyRigs and ergo rigs and different stabilization for like gimbals and stuff like that, not that you can't use them, but I think that they go out of style relatively fast. The way that I particularly film, putting it on my shoulder and putting it on my hip are the two places that I have it for the most part, outside of having it on a tripod, but investing in something that you can use long-term. So I have the Shape shoulder rigs and I can put them on any camera body. If I have a big shoot and I have to use somebody else's camera, I can put their camera on it, so it works very well for me. And then obviously media cards and drives, you need to be able to record on your media. And that's something that's an example of a good place that you want to put your money into. The media cards, which are very expensive these days, depending on what camera you have. And it's not the sexy purchase. It's not the flashy purchase, but it's one that you need. You can't have a 80 gig card and then have to dump in the middle of the shoot. You need to be able to film for 10 hours straight at minimum and not have to dump your media. Ideally, You can go 2 or 3 days with the amount of media you have before you have to replace it, because if you're on a shoot with multiple days, you don't want the AC or the person DITing erasing the media the very next day. You're hoping that there's a little buffer in between. And then it comes down to stuff like cases and bags that protect the investment that you're looking into. The cases and these different items are not the flashy purchase, but you get a good case and you're gonna travel all around the world, you're gonna be glad that you have it. Those are some of the things that you need to consider when you're investing your money into your new career. If you need a monitor, a good one goes a long way, but it's not mandatory because most of these cameras do come with it. But that's something that you want to invest in once and have for a very long time. Now, the next time you're about to spend money on gear, I want you to ask yourself one question. If you go on that next shoot without that piece of gear, is it really going to decrease the value of your work? Are you going to charge more money because you have that new focusing system? Answer is probably not. What is this piece of kit going to do that advances your storytelling through visuals? If the answer is nothing, it's a nice to have, not mandatory. If you need a specific piece of gear to execute a job, then you need to buy it. It's not a problem, that's fine. But you should not be buying new gear for every shoot. That's a bad sign. So now let me put this all together, because the point of this was never about spending less. It's about spending smarter and working with what you already have. At the top, I showed you a History Channel shoot with 4 pieces of gear. At the end, I promised you a question that would save you thousands. Here's where it all connects. The gear trap. Buying is the cop-out. Networking, marketing, and craft are the real level up. The battery problem. More accessories means slower setup and more failure points. The on button rule. On button equals depreciates. No on button equals invest heavy. The purchase test. Can you shoot without it and work doesn't suffer? If it doesn't, then it's a nice to have. Then the essentials: camera, battery, lenses, tripod, stabilization, media, and cases. That's the foundation. The best stories I've told, the best projects I've had the simplest kit. It doesn't take a lot to tell a great story. Amateurs keep adding gear and hoping it makes their work better. Professionals strip it down because they know that every piece of gear is a distraction from the actual work. So the truth is, you weren't missing gear that leveled you up, you were missing intention. Once again, I'm Eric D. Seals. Keep telling stories that matter.